there's a difference between intention and impact, right? And intention is great. Like, I intend to build this business so that my family has freedom. Well, if every day you spend time away from your family and they don't get you and they knock on the door and you yell at them because they're bothering you as you're trying to build the thing for them, what's the impact of that? Because your intentions don't mean anything. Who cares about your intentions? What's the actual impact you're making in the day to day? Because that's what your family remembers. That's what your family feels. That's what you feel. So it's really critical to pay close attention to, like, okay, if I make this choice, if I set this deadline, if I push for this goal, what's the day-to-day impact of that on me, on the people around me, on the values I say I want to live by?
Elizabeth Hartke, is it a pleasure to welcome you to the Inner Entrepreneur podcast?
Thanks for having me, Paul. I'm happy to be with you.
It's a delight. You know, you have a podcast yourself. It's like preparing for guests. And about a half an hour ago, I was strolling through your website, and I always have kind of an opening statement to get me going with a guest. So I had something in mind, but I noticed something in your website that struck me and brought up a memory which I want to share with you. And the memory is that last December, I was in a room with about 50 successful entrepreneurs. I say successful because you have to have a business of a certain scale in the millions just to be in the
Yeah.
room. So they're all very successful people. And as a kind of an icebreaker before dinner, the question was asked, what is your highlight moment of the year, or what was the time of day, a moment of the year? What was it? And we each had to share that. And everyone shared a moment, and nobody spoke about their business. And I spoke about a day with my family in London. All my sons are adults, so when we all got together, it was a surprise trip. My wife brought them over for me, but everyone shared story, and everyone's story was to do it with family. One guy sold his business, but the memory was, I think he was in Rome, but the memory was there with his family at the time. And as I looked through your website, which is Luminary Leadership, which is the business you founded, it's like looking through the Liz Hartke family album, because all I see is pictures of Liz, her husband, and her beautiful children. So that's just what resonates. So please tell the audience about you. But obviously, that's hugely. I think that in itself tells us lots about you. Maybe.
Yes, you're right. And I was super blessed to grow up in a family, an extended, like, multi-generational family, where it was kind of the lines were blurred between the immediate family and extended family. So I spent as much time with my grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins as I did with my siblings, my parents, and it was just such a blessing as a kid. And so it really grounded and anchored me in, outside of, like, doing what you're called to do in this life, primary value for me is family, and how am I honoring it? And for me, as an entrepreneur and believing in the vehicle of entrepreneurship as a tool to create the best possible life for a family, I've seen it do that, and I've seen it come at the detriment of family too, of marriages, of relationships, of health, and all of that. So it's I'm just been on this quest, Paul, for years now to really work with those family first minded entrepreneurs who want this to be something greater than a compartmentalized life of, like, oh yeah, I really value family over here, and then I grow a business and I'm a founder over here. And instead, how do we integrate the two? How do we make it a gift? Because I grew up in a family, not just extended, but of entrepreneurs. Like, my grandparents, aunts, uncles, both my mom and my dad, they all ran their own businesses. So it was such a gift to us as kids. One, to have that flexibility in their lives. They were present for everything. Even though they had to work their butt off at odd hours to make up for it, they were there with us. And two, I learned more sitting, observing my parents or my grandfather, or my uncles in their businesses than I ever did in school.
Mm.
Because there's so many life lessons that you can get through how you treat people, communication, your thoughts around money, how you think of yourself, how you show up as a leader. Like, all of that stuff was happening in real time. I didn't know it at the time. I'm sitting there coloring at the conference table while my mom's talking to a client, but I was absorbing every last detail. So I feel like that kind of rooted in me, not necessarily strategically or by choice, and now it really is a central focus to me because I did it wrong for a while.
Mm.
You know, I did build the business at the expense of my family while under the guise of doing it for them for the first few years. You know, I did, um, prioritize my goals and my vision without really asking the question, "Well, what's the impact of my goals and my vision when I'm a part of a team, a family, on a mission together? Like, how do we integrate that?" So, everything I do now is a result of having done it wrong and having to, course correct. But yeah, family is definitely central to everything I do.
So what was that? So, or was there a moment when you were doing it wrong? What was that
Mm.
pivotal? Was it a gradual thing, or was there a pivotal moment where something happened? Or I mean, what caused you to go, "Oh, I need to do this differently"?
Yeah, I think I'm dense enough, Paul, that I have to get hit by a 2 by 4 smack in the forehead enough times
Yeah,
to really get it, because you ask that question and I have like 4 or 5 things pop up into my head, but they're over a span of time. So, like, I
yeah.
get hit with a kinda dose of reality, and then I course correct a little, but then, you fall back into old habits, or you don't really find a way to just truly transform how you're going forward. So, the first one that comes to mind, my oldest was young, and we had just broken into, our first million in profit, so we were celebrating. It was a big week for us as a company, and we were also hosting it, like, coincided with, we host masterminds, we
Mm,
have for about a dozen years, and we were hosting this really big mastermind with about probably 30 very
mm,
successful entrepreneurs coming in, flying into New Hampshire, and we had rented this mega mansion on this lake up in, um, northern New Hampshire, and it was beautiful, and my mentor was coming out to be there as a guest speaker, but also to celebrate with us. And I remember being, like, so proud to have him there because he was with me when I couldn't figure out how to make my first
mm,
100K. Like, he
mm,
saw me struggle through all of it. So I'm expecting the pat on the back and the celebration and him getting up and kind of recognizing me for all the boxes we had ticked and all we had accomplished. We had just gotten our first Forbes feature, just like a lot of big
mm,
wins that year that we had been pushing for based on my goals. And my mentor pulled me aside when there was a break in the action. He's like, "Hey, can we talk?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he sits across the table from me and he kind of looks nervous, and he's not a nervous guy. And I'm like, what is it that he has to say that he's like uneasy with me? We have such a great relationship. And he just kind of asks me point blank, like, do I have permission to be really honest with you? I'm like, yeah, sure. And he's like, you are drastically underperforming your potential. And it hit me
'Cause I've just
square
been
in the
impressed
chest.
listening to what you're doing. I'm really
Yes. And
impressed listening.
I'm like, "Who is this guy?
How
Like,
dare you?
what is he missing?" And,
Wow.
like, the hot-headed Italian in me wanted to just, like, yeah, butt him and fight him, but I'm like, "Man, this guy really loves me." Like, he
Mm,
has loved me well for the last few years and
mm,
how he's led me. Like, let me sit with this for a minute. So I eked out the question of, like, "Okay, like, what do you mean? Tell me more." And he's like, "Liz, you have been so focused on achieving these specific goals, right? The financial goals or the media features. But I'm looking at you and you have completely failed to show up as the person that I know you're capable of being, like the leader that I know you're called to be." And I know that, he knew that, like, family was so central to me because
mm,
every conversation we'd have, I would talk about, pay lip service to what I'm building and why I'm building it and all the freedom we're going to have as a family and how it's going to impact my children and my marriage. And he's like, "You are talking out of one side of your mouth, but you're living completely different from that. Like, when was the last time you thought of your husband?" My husband's Michael. "Like, when was the last time you just did something to totally pour into Michael?" Or how has it affected Jack, our oldest, of how many hours you had to work and slog away to hit this financial metric that you hit? And it just was this, my first of many wake up calls of like, "Oh, I don't think I'm doing this right." And it was a humbling moment because I went into the weekend very excited and celebratory, and then I started reflecting and I got I was very surface level when we got there, like, "Oh, I did these things, and this is great, and I'm surrounded by all these amazing people," and then I'm starting to pulse check my value system and my life, and then I'm, like, looking at the people in the room, and I'm like, "I don't even wanna do life with these kind of people." Like, they weren't
No.
even my people. They weren't valuing their families, they just made a buttload of money and paid me a buttload of money to mentor them in business. I'm like, "I don't think I'm doing this right." Like, this I everyone's telling me this is success, but it doesn't feel good to me. So that was kind of the first gut check. I've had many more since then, but with each one, I get a little better, but then I have another one that makes me realize, like, you still have a long way to go. Like, you still have a lot of growth to be had. You're not there yet, and I don't think we ever are there. To me, it's like a lot of fighting nature. You know, you talk about the inner work. I imagine having done a lot of it myself and working with my clients, the inner work isn't a box you tick and you're like, "Oh, now I don't have this insecurity ever again." Or now I'm the leader I need to be and I'll never face any of the hardships or the struggles or the emotional side of things. It's that you're building a toolkit that you pull from more quickly to be more resilient so that when you do experience the nature of being human, you don't fall back into those old habits or those comforts that are taking you further and further from who you're actually called to be, which subsequently is, taking you further and further from what you're actually called to build in terms of business.
It was an amazing insight from your mentor because if he was a business mentor, you would expect that he would be looking at the numbers because it sounds like an enormous achievement um, for a young woman. And yet he had the insight. Well, maybe he knew you very, very well, and he's going, "This is going to feel like success, but it's not.
Mhm.
But it's not really. It's not really. It's not really success." Um,
Right.
Hmm. And it comes down to interestingly, again, I'm trying to think about 3, 4 months ago in a room again with a number of entrepreneurs, and we're sharing, each, what they're trying to do and build. And one of them is literally at the point, and I say at the point of maybe taking his company 100x. So we are talking
Wow.
phenomenal growth. Yeah, very, very, very impressive. Um, and I've no doubt he will do it because it's a very solid plan. It's very solid. All is good. So we get to the base of the why. I mean, I love the why question because it's where everything starts for me. If you don't know your why, which probably comes back to what your mentor was getting at, that you had lost your why, but but his why was he wanted freedom. So, and it's kind of, I mean, there was no comment or feedback from anyone in the room. There was no one saying to him, "Are you crazy? Or you shouldn't be doing that."
Right.
Because that wasn't what it was about. It was the dropping for him of that moment, going, I'm looking to build this monster of a business to pursue freedom. Are they compatible?" And I suppose I'm not sure what conclusion he ultimately came to, but I think the awareness is massively important because
Yeah.
I've no doubt you can build it and maintain freedom, just like you can build your business doing masterminds, a session of time for your family, but you need to be intentional and you need to be aware and you
Absolutely.
need to be aware of it. So after that, I mean, what was the shift? It's really interesting that you say you had the clients in the room and you're going, "I don't want to work with these people." So, and I suppose that maybe that's what I get looking on your website is going, if I'm the person that goes, forget family, I just want the dollars. I'm going to go to your website and go, I'm not, I'm not going to work with this lady.
Right.
And you go, "Well, thank you. That's exactly what I want."
Yes. I want the images of us as a family and living, in congruence with our values to scream at people so that the wrong
Yeah.
people who don't resonate with that immediately, remove
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
from the equation. Um, so I have a phrase that I've kind of grounded myself in and that I really lean in with my entrepreneurs, and it's how you build the thing is as important as the thing you build. Because so often we get into building the thing, whatever, the business, and we focus so much on that. And we look at it like, okay, when I build this thing, then I can have fill in the blank, more quality of life, more time with my kids, have the freedom. I guarantee that guy that you're talking about, like, he could have elements of freedom long before 100xing his business. And what is the cost, right? So you have to be able to look at, okay, to get to 10x 50x, 100x, what's the cost? What's the journey there? Because that's really what matters. That's what life is.
Mm.
It's just the culmination of the moments in the day to day. Like right now, as I'm talking to you, my husband has the kids out in the pool. They're all playing. I just saw them out the window before we sat down together. And as soon as we're done, I'm going outside and I'm cannonballing into that pool with my kids. Now, do I have a laundry list of things in the business that I'm progressing? Absolutely. But my connection with my family and carving out those intentional times to have those moments is primary, because if I build the empire and it came at the expense of everything I said mattered most, it all crumbles and it doesn't matter. And the funny thing is, the level of entrepreneur that I work with often has built something really significant
Mm.
and has built something real. And the reason that they're bringing me in is because they realize the thing they built was not really true success. Like, it never really mattered
Mm.
because they were always focused on the thing they were building, but not how they were building it. So, for the first, here's another example of how I got it wrong for a while. So, for the first like 5 or 6 years in business, I was strictly business strategy. I love strategizing around business. I'm like, don't start talking about it with me because I'll go down every rabbit trail you can imagine to nerd out on the next marketing strategy or what I learned around AI or all this stuff. I just love it. I don't know why, but I've always really enjoyed that. So the first 5 or 6 years, people were hiring me because I got them really good results. Like, we were 5xing, 10xing their revenue. They were getting massive ROI and working together. And I got to do what I really enjoyed, which was kind of just mastermind these ideas around their business that were going to help them thrive in terms of their business and their numbers. But maybe like 5 or 6 years in, I had this aha that every single, without exception, which is a rare thing you can say, like a stat of like 100% of the people that I was working with, at some point in the business growth, they hit some kind of cap, right? Like, we weren't seeing the same level of trajectory and exponential growth that we'd been seeing when we first started working together. And 100% of the time, they were the bottleneck. It was no longer a strategic insight that they needed. It wasn't a system that they had to apply into their business. It wasn't a hire they had to make or a fire they had to make. It was their business had outgrown their leadership.
Mm.
And we had spent so much time focused on how do we scale the business and very little time on how do we scale the person leading the business, the engine of this thing, that it dawned on me, if this is happening with such frequency, the real results, like the results that cannot be forced or just come from hard work alone, are going to come from when I can unlock the leader, when I can scale the visionary or the founder, so that everything they do from that moment forward is no longer from a place of like manufacturing it or forcing it to happen, or from hard work alone, which we were all really accustomed to. Like, none of us are shy. If you're a successful entrepreneur, hard work is your love language. Like, you're not shying, you're not doing something because gee whiz, this is going to be hard. Most of the time that magnetizes you to it and everyone thinks you're nuts because you're like, people are like, you're going to do that? That's so hard. Yeah, that's the point. Give me the challenge. So that shift came, and what was so remarkable was all the things that we had been trying to calculate and create and build that was felt like heavy, like we were dragging it through the mud, but we were making it happen, started to become naturally accessible to these founders, like the type of growth that they were craving, but amplified because they were building from a place of overflow, not force. So this is so much of the work that you do, Paul. Like, if you can identify who you need to become, like the inside work, not just what chess pieces do I have to move on a surface level. Now, all of a sudden, you access a level of inspiration and innovation and creativity and calling and honoring your values and building from what I call calling integrity. Like, you were actually building something that you were put on this planet in this season of your life to do. That's pretty cool. Not a lot of people get to ever meet their purpose in that moment in time. That it all starts to happen naturally.
Mm.
And it was wild, like, the doors that started opening for them, the opportunities they were getting. We had built, like, a whole pitch deck and a whole pitch plan to try and get them on these stages. Now those stages and even bigger stages were calling them. It was like
Mm.
this unbelievable momentum that built. So much of my business has shifted over the years. Now founders are bringing me in because they're like, "Oh, she's the girl that's gonna help me do the impossible because she's gonna help me unlock me."
Mm.
Now we still do a lot of the business strategy because I can't help myself, but
Mm.
it's secondary to, yeah, this block you're facing, this struggle, you're not gonna just go grasp at another strategy because it's more comfortable for you. Like, let's figure out what's really tripping you out. So that was a scary shift for me because in my mind, I always told myself, "Well, people only pay for, like, the business strategy." You know what I mean? Like, people aren't looking for someone to help them scale themselves. They're looking for what's the quick fix? What's the thing that I can implement that's gonna make me more money? Well, come to find out there are a lot of hungry entrepreneurs out there who are desperate for this kind of work, and it's really the leadership work. And you used the word awareness earlier. That's like job 1. So many of us are doing things. I know I'm speaking from my own experience for myself. We're doing things because we don't have the level of awareness to see our blind spots or
Mm.
to see the patterns we're just totally subconsciously repeating that are hurting us or taking us off the path to where we're really called to go.
I mean, way back, you said something that struck me as really important. You talked about how we compartmentalize business and our family,
Mhm.
and it really struck me. It struck me because it's just so true. It's just what we see everywhere. But the other thing I think, taking from this, is also that is what people do is they compartmentalize themselves from their
Mhm.
business. So they become the doer of their business. So maybe when they go home, or they switch into something else, like they don't bring the same version of themselves. And
Yep.
it sounds like that what you're guiding them towards is some degree of alignment where they connect
Exactly.
with the truth of who they are, their own version of what that calling and purpose is, and then they bring that back into their organization. And so I always hope about, I'm not that engaged in business much anymore, but when I was at the forefront, I always wanted to be a situation where if you walked in to a business meeting and met me as CEO, you would leave an impression of me. But if
Mhm.
you came across me that evening and I was having dinner with my wife and you sat down and spent an hour chatting with me, you'd go, "It's the same guy." There's-
Exactly.
That's well, that was just my version of it.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. I have the same thing that drives me. Is my fear was if my kids ever overheard a client speaking about me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, she changed my life," or "She
Yeah.
helped me with this," or "She just loved me so well," or whatever they're hearing. And my kid's sitting there being like, "I don't know that version of her. Like, I didn't get that,"
Yeah.
or "Who are they talking about?" And I was like, that I can never risk that happening.
No.
And as a result, I will often change timelines or change my goals to make sure that the process of getting there is honoring that exact description. We have my book was so here's kind of a funny story, very serendipitous or something. I for years, like over a decade, I said I was gonna write a book, and I always just kept kicking that can down the road, but I knew it was like it was a calling thing. And finally, about a year and a half ago, I made the decision, it's time. And I felt so inspired and I was so ready. And I wrote the book and we picked the launch date, which was going to be October 13th of 2025. And I wasn't working with a traditional publisher, kind of a hybrid. So we had, mapped out the marketing plan, everything, when pre-launch is going to be. Well, come to find out, I a few months later, I find out I'm pregnant with our 6th little
Congratulations.
baby. Thank you. And my due date's October 13th.
That is bizarre.
And, to tell you
That's the
that,
universe
like,
telling you something.
yeah. So to show you how old habits really do die hard, my initial reaction was like, "Okay, cool. Like, we'll do
I can
both at
do
the
this.
same
Yeah.
time. What's
Yeah.
the big deal?"
Yeah.
And my
It's
team was
only
like,
delivering a baby. What's the
yeah, deliver a baby,
Yeah.
deliver a book, it'll go great, it'll be part of the marketing plan. My team was like, "You idiot, like, you are absolutely not doing that. You are enjoying this
Mm,
baby, you are taking time as a family, and why do you have to launch the book on October 13th? Because you said so? Like, who cares? Just
mm.
change the date." So, I fought them for, like, a good 2 weeks, and then finally
Wow.
one of my mentors came in and he was like, "I will disown you
Yeah.
as a mentee if you do this. This is just stupid. You're not gonna be you're gonna be a hypocrite." I was like, "Okay, fine." So we bumped the book now launches in Q1. But it was like those are the kind of things that you have to be willing to look at. How is this actually affecting the people and the relationships and the life I want to lead in the process of getting there? Because we always think about like, oh, the book, it's about the book launch. What numbers will the book do? What bestseller list could it do? What do we have to do to get there? We're not calculating, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, on repeat all the way in those months. What happens on those days?
Mm,
And then how does it translate in terms of, did I live into who I'm called to be and the values I say are important to me, or did I
mm.
completely neglect them? And so I will often, my team is so good about this, but I will often, if something starts to feel heavy, not hard. I like hard, give me the challenge,
Yeah.
but heavy, where I'm like, there's something
There's a
not right.
difference.
Huge difference. I go to my team and I'm like, "Hey guys, I'm feeling a heaviness feeling." It's not a fear of like getting it done or anything like that. We've got to evaluate this and maybe prune some stuff. And if it still feels heavy, even after we strip away some other stuff, we got to change the date, or we got to, figure out this partnership or whatever, or it's got to go away, even if I already said I was going to do it, because I am not going to proceed carrying something that is not right for me and my family. So that's been a big shift, and that's a big encouragement that I'm constantly like reiterating back to my clients, because they are very much like me, where they can do anything, they'll figure it out, they're resourceful, but I'm like, yeah, at what cost? And we have to weigh that cost, because it matters, and because there's a difference between intention and impact, right? And intention is great. Like, I intend to build this business so that my family has freedom. Well, if every day you spend time away from your family and they don't get you, and they knock on the door and you yell at them because they're bothering you as you're trying to build the thing for them, what's the impact of that? Because your intentions don't mean anything. Who cares about your intentions? What's the actual impact you're making in the day to day? Because that's what your family remembers. That's what your family feels. That's what you feel. So it's really critical to pay close attention to like, okay, if I make this choice, if I set this deadline, if I push for this goal, what's the day-to-day impact of that on me, on the people around me, on the values I say I want to live by?
I'm smiling because I'm just thinking you thought the book was your big next, but it turned out a new baby was your big next.
Isn't it funny?
Isn't
It is.
it? It is so funny,
You're
but,
so right.
what's so funny is because we talked about this notion of that if you're someone who, has done the inner work, and yeah, I admit it's been an obsession of mine for 4 decades, but, is there a point where you go, "I'm done," and the answer is no, it's never happened, and well, at least maybe I've never found it.
Right.
I have found multiple stages where I thought, "Ah, I'm here." And I
Mhm.
was there for a short period of time,
Sure.
and
A
then
season.
and then it was somewhere else to go. But was what I find really interesting about the story is that you're so immersed in this work and you're so aware of it, and yet you got caught into this notion of, oh, it's fine. I mean, to everyone else was going like, is she crazy? But the
Yeah.
two obvious things, hey, no, it wasn't fine, and you've done this before. Like, it's not your first. Like, what's
Yeah.
involved. You know physically, mentally, emotionally how you're going to be.
Yep.
And so it's really interesting how you resisted that. But I think that's fundamental. It's fundamental to the lesson. I mean, the analogy I use when I'm speaking to leaders is I go like, you have you're climbing the ladder to success, and when you get up there, you realize it was against the wrong wall. And I think
Yeah. Completely.
That's fundamentally what we do. But the other interesting thing is you talked about the, you had to be hit by a plank a couple of times, which I did. I've been hit by a few major blows to kind of wake me up. But also every single person that I have. So I'm talking about every single person I've interviewed, say in the show, very successful people, and also every single person I know who has come to this realization that they need more balance in their life. I'm going to say 100% of them did it the hard way. No,
Mhm.
not one of them stepped at a meditation and went, "Ah, I need to take it easier." We all, for whatever I mean, I got to a point where I thought I was having a heart attack when my doctor said, I nearly had a heart attack this morning," and he goes, Actually, no, you didn't. You're just stressed." But point is, it took me to that period of time, and then at that point in time, I realized, oh, of course you're stressed, and you've been stressed for the past maybe 2 years or something. But I don't know. The wake up call is needed by us all.
Yeah,
Unique there,
and we usually need many, like,
because
there are some
we're
people
not
that
listening.
yeah, we're not listening, and we don't wanna
We
listen
don't want to
because
listen.
the work that we have to do to make the change is not the
Mm,
just strategic move
no.
of like, "Oh, I'll just hire this person, I'll do this thing." It's like the inner corners of ourself that it's personal, it's painful,
Mm,
it's emotional. So, of course, we don't wanna do that. So, it's like you really have to want to live the life you're called to live and to get your ego out of the driver's seat really is what it is, and it's a very hard thing, and it's a very emotional thing, and like you said, you have seasons where you're there,
mm.
but then life throws you the next curveball, and it's like, "Oh, I guess I have to do this again. I have to figure this out
Well, I think
again."
it's not only the curveball, it's that, I mean, you spoke about, very early on your mentor going to, you're not living to your full potential. And I kind of look at it from that point of view, is that, your potential, the more you build, the more potential you have, the more
Mhm.
potential you're open to. And those potential bring challenges. So if you climb one mountain and you feel like you've achieved something, from that point, you may rest for a while, and then you go, there's another mountain to climb. Now, I'm, by the way, entrepreneur also, so I'm all on for climbing those mountains. I want people to climb them with joy, purpose, and love, as opposed to climbing and thinking, I'm miserable, I'm unhappy, I don't take care of my body, I don't take care of myself, I don't take care of my family, I don't take care of my partner. But when I climb that mountain, because we have to call that, because that's absolute bullshit. And I think also the reason it hits us hard is because I'm thinking, I know there'll be people listening to this to be thinking, yeah, maybe that's me. The reason it took me so long to wake up was one word simple: fear. I
Mhm.
was I was afraid actually to look at who I needed to be differently, because there were a lot of things in that made me terrified personally, to be open about who I am and what my nature is. But also there are things that just terrified me financially, because I thought maybe you would have thought the same. If I'm not the strategy girl, nobody wants to do business with me. And I'm thinking,
Right.
well, if I don't do business this way, my business won't be successful. And I'm afraid of that. So
Mhm.
fear underlines a lot of in my experience, fear underlines a lot of the reason why we're not willing to change.
I completely agree, and the problem is a lot of times it's fear is not the primary emotion, like, it's masked as something
Yeah.
else so that we don't even really know it's a fear, so it's harder to address, but it's it's a question I ask myself a lot that helps me kinda, like, ground in reality is, like, "Okay, what's the alternative?" Like, when a mentor or a friend or I see something that I'm, like, starting to get clued into a blind spot or something that I don't really want to address or that I have fear around, I say, "Okay, well, what's the alternative? Like, what would it look like if I didn't address this?" Let's do some calculations here. What does a year from now look like? What does 5 years from now
Mm.
look like? Because I think a lot of times we convince ourselves, like you said, we're climbing to that next mountain peak and we convince ourselves once we get to that mountain, then we can
Mm.
whatever. Like we justify it um versus saying what's the actual reality? Like what are
Mm.
can we speak in truths, not hypotheticals, not in the future, not in some days that never show up And that to me has helped me make some hard decisions as a leader, and as a parent and, in many corners of my life of like, I need to do the right thing right now because we
Mm.
have right now. And the ripple effect of making this choice versus that choice are going to be two very different outcomes. And I've weighed those alternatives and I'm not willing to make that sacrifice.
When you're talking about doing the right thing, to what degree is that an intuitive decision, and to what degree is that a practical decision, or is it a mix of both?
It's a mix of both. I feel like I would say my greatest strength, I can't take credit for. So, my greatest strength is that I was very uniquely blessed, as I kind of alluded to in the beginning, to observe some of the most morally sound human beings on the face of this planet who happen to have been my family members.
Mm.
So, there was never, like, you always did the right thing, and there was evidence of what the right thing is. And so that was kind of just like woven into the fabric of my DNA of that. So I had an advantage, but I know that not everybody was raised with people, making choices that were harder for them, but the right choice or the good thing to do or the thing that they'll be proud of someday when they're 90 looking back on it,
Mm.
even if it screwed them financially that day.
Mm.
Like my grandfather has had a law office in the inner city in a really bad city in Massachusetts, and it was down the street from my high school, so I would work there after school, and then I'd work there in the summers just answering phones, and really, I think it was my grandfather's way to, like, just get time with me because 'cause
Mm.
we'd have, like, a 2-hour lunch and just sit and
Mm.
talk, and he was later in his career, so he wasn't working, crazy hours or anything. But he was very much a lot of the work he did was pro bono at that point in his life. He was eking up on 70 at the time when I was working alongside him. And a lot of the people in the city didn't have money to pay. And most of them, they were immigrants and they didn't speak English. And he was just constantly like doing things outside of the scope of what a lawyer does.
Mm.
And I remember there was this one particular summer where like people would come in and they'd say something in Spanish asking for my grandfather. I knew a little bit of Spanish just from like learning in high school. And then my grandfather would come out of his office and he'd write a $500 check. And I was balancing the checkbook. So, like a month into this, I'm like, what is going on? Like, usually you get paid, you're not paying people. How are you sustaining? And he's like, listen, you know, these are people going through a really hard time in their lives. And they probably caught wind that I helped somebody out with something that they needed help with rent or
Mm.
whatever. And so maybe 99 out of the 100 that come in are taking advantage of me. But if there's a chance that one of these people genuinely needs help and I'm feeling called to help them, like I know
Mm.
I feel it's the right thing to do, that's a risk I'm willing to take. So he would just do stuff like that. Or like I'd look at my mom, she still runs her practice, she's a CPA. I had no idea like so this was what I thought a CPA was because growing up my mom's practice was small and she had a lot of elderly clients because my grandfather, who was a lawyer, was older and then would pass clients on to her and they were later stage of life. So at least 2, 3 times a week, we were getting in the car from her office and going to like the local nursing home and sitting with these elderly people. And I was like, oh, CPAs like care for the elderly. And she would be like, oh, it's Maureen's birthday. We got to bring her a cake. Her kid, she doesn't have kids that live around here,
Mm.
so we don't want her to be alone on her birthday. Or, Mrs. Snow, she is going through a health crisis. So we got to take her. We're going to transfer her over to the rehab hospital and check on her. And, we'd do that stuff all the time. Come to find out, oh, CPAs don't do that. That was just the right thing to do because she was called to do it.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think some of it, like for me, it was a lot of taught, right? Like I just was influenced by that. But now I have a lot of clients who maybe didn't have that example. So
Mm.
how do we help people tap into that moral code and and intuition and get fed a different vantage point on the right thing? We live in a culture right now where I'm seeing a lot of like the Gen Zs coming up and they are being taught, and it's such a bummer. They're being taught, take what's yours, have strong boundaries, Like if someone like always do what's best for you, and it's just not a mentality that I was raised with. Now, I'm not saying fall on the sword for any and everyone, always just give everything of yourself so you have nothing left over, but I am saying life is more nuanced than that, and doing the right thing is not necessarily what it says in a contract. You have to
Mm,
be able to think outside that box. So I work with my clients a lot on really tapping into, like, how do you know what the right thing is? And so I create everything that I teach that feels very esoteric, because leadership it can feel like a pie in the sky idea, not a thing I can touch and apply. I try to bring it down from 30,000 feet to earth and make it applicable, making leadership tangible. So I create a lot of frameworks that they can then put through that filter, and then like actually do in their days so that they
mm,
can measure. So one tool I had created years ago for myself, again, out of my own necessity, and then now for my clients, is called the Visionary Matrix. And this matrix is 4 quadrants. In the quadrant that we often find ourselves in, and this kind of builds on what we were talking about earlier, Paul, is we find ourselves, especially as successful or busy entrepreneurs, in the quadrant of easy but heavy. So, what I mean by that is we are so in maintenance mode. We're so in survival mode. We're so in like, I've got to do this, and we've got to make this money, and I've got to do payroll, and I got to push for these goals and this opportunity, that we grasp at the low hanging fruit that's going to be easy for us to do because we can do it in our sleep. We're going to sign that next client, even though we don't really like align with that person because it's money for us. We're going to, launch that offer, even though we think about launching it and we're like, "Ugh, I so don't wanna do this again." Like, it's just not the right thing. And we do that on repeat. But when we think about those easy things, they hold a heaviness to them that if we actually took the time in our days as leaders to think and contemplate, which, by the way, is one of the most profitable things you can do as a visionary, we would very easily be able to be like, "Ugh, this isn't right. Like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good. This isn't aligned. Not this is too hard, but this
yeah,
just feels
the
heavy."
difference.
The other quadrant that I'm really trying to help shepherd my clients into is the quadrant that's hard but light. It's the challenge. It's the thing that you probably aren't yet the leader that you need to be able to do it and sustain it. You don't even have the resources for it yet, whether it be money or team or time or capacity. But when you think about it, you have a clarity around it, and it has this lightness to it, like you are
Mm,
called to it. So this works for big decisions, and this works for determining the right thing. So when you look at big decisions, my book fell into that hard but light quadrant, right? Yet I was so busy with all the crap in the easy but heavy quadrant, I kept pushing it year after year down the road, because I'm like, well, that book's not going to make
yeah,
me any money when I'm writing it, but this client, even though I don't want to work with them, is going to make me a lot of money. So I finally had to get to this place where I'm like, I am actually usually every week putting stuff in the quadrants and reassessing, like, what's falling in this easy but heavy quadrant that's just got to go. That's not for me anymore. And that's the evidence of it. You can do the same thing, like take my grandfather's scenario as an example of like, what is the right thing? Well, which quadrant does it fall in for him? Right? Like, if there's a lightness to it, if he knows that he can give without worrying about receiving it back or being taken advantage of, and that's what God's calling him to do, then he goes and does it,
mm.
right? But if it had but you also have to use intuition of like, if it has a heaviness to it, might not be the right move. So it's really just being like, to me, the tangible nature of your question is, are you building in time into your weekly schedule? Because if it doesn't show up in your week, it's not actually that important to you to think about these things, to cast vision, to ask yourself these questions? Or are you just on autopilot so much, and you're so busy and you're so reactive and you're so responsive, just maintaining what is, with this illusion that you're going to
Mm.
some grandiose place, that you're on the treadmill and you're not choosing to get off, and you don't even take the time to think about what the right thing to do is?
I love that. I love the word heavy because it's. Well, I would certainly feel that about certain things. I can be excited to start a project or something, and then there can be a heaviness to it. And I think
Mhm.
it's a real communication. I'm over in Spain at the moment, but I tomorrow morning I go out and there's a particular hill I climb, and I don't do it all the time because it's extraordinarily difficult. It takes about 7 minutes to get up this, but it's going to be the hardest 7 minutes of
Mhm.
my week. It's just extraordinarily difficult. And I've been over here for a while, so I know I have to have trained up to get up this. Now, climbing this is enormously hard. There's nothing heavy about it. And that's
Right.
the and it's I mean, I know it's I mean, I'll have to have been here training a while before I'll tackle it. And you'll stand up and you'll push as hard as you, but there is a, although it's extraordinarily difficult, there's nothing heavy about it, and it's a complete different. There's a complete distinction, and I think if people tune into that and take that awareness to, well, this is hard to do, but there's energy to it, there's buzz to it, or this is heavy. I think there's a great distinction. Talk about the book that's going to have to be delayed a little bit, but
Yeah.
your big next. I know you have a podcast called Your Big Next,
Yeah.
and the book. So um, give us what you tell us what the highlights of the book, or what you're willing to share about the book at this stage.
Yeah. So the book was, um it came out of a really hard season for me. So, like I said, for many years, I wanted to write a book and I had a million ideas. I can come up with a million ideas a day. It doesn't mean they're good, but I can come up with them. That's one thing that I do a lot of. And nothing ever fully spoke to me in a way where I had complete clarity, like, this is what I'm gonna write, I'm gonna write it. But about a year and a half ago, I we were pregnant with our 5th little one, and it was, I was about 17 weeks pregnant, and everything was going great up to that point, and I went in for a routine, heartbeat check, and there was no heartbeat, no explanation, no particular reason, and it just gutted me. I was so devastated, and our kids were so
Mm,
excited to bring this, 5th little one into the world and have another little sibling, and that following week, I delivered our son at home, but I immediately started hemorrhaging. So my husband, rushed me to the hospital, and through a series of kind of twists and turns and crazy events, that time in the hospital, I'd been internally bleeding, like, very, very badly, but we didn't know. And, and then all of a sudden I started, like, externally hemorrhaging where every corner of that hospital room
oh,
had my blood in
oh
it.
my god,
And I
terrifying.
ended up losing. It was terrifying, and I ended up losing over upwards of 60% of my blood volume, and usually around
Wow.
30% is catastrophic, and the only
Wow.
like, I think there were a lot of miracles that happened, but in addition to those miracles, they had been pumping me with so much fluid thinking like, "Oh, you're just
Mm,
dehydrated, it's first thing in the morning, you just had a baby, like, we'll pump you with fluid," but that offsets your blood loss, right? So you start to perk up a little bit because you've got all this solution in
mm,
you that's, making up for the blood loss. So the doctor was gonna discharge me, had filled out the discharge papers, and the nurse comes in and she looks at my blood pressure and it's just dropping and dropping, and I'm at, like, 68 over 35, and she's like, I can't discharge you like this, like, I'm gonna go get an OB." So when the OB came in, that's when I started really hemorrhaging, thank God. If that nurse hadn't said
mm.
anything, I would've gone home, taken a nap, and never woken up.
Wow.
And, so I had a life-saving surgery and a massive blood transfusion, and when I came out of the haze of those few days in the hospital, I remember saying to my husband, like, "I am never spending another moment of my life doing anything that God's not calling me to do. That's, like, not for me, truly. Even if it's not what I want to do, if
Yeah,
it's for me,
there's a
I'm
difference.
doing it, and if it's not for me, I'm not doing it." And that caused me to reevaluate a lot. I mean, we had just sold over 600 I'm sorry, over 6 figures worth of this offer that we had running on repeat launching every quarter, and I was like, "Refund them. Give them all their money back. Let them keep it. Refund them. I'm
Yeah,
not fulfilling on it.
we're
This
not
is
doing
not where I'm called to
it.
go anymore." It was in my easy but heavy quadrant.
Yeah,
So I was really fearful that I'm like, "This is gonna totally destroy my business." Not to mention the fact that my entire schedule got wiped
of course.
totally clean because I couldn't lift my head off the pillow. I couldn't get myself to the bathroom for about a month, as my body started to regenerate more blood and everything. So, and, I was mourning the loss of our baby.
Of
Like, I
course.
was just a
So from
a
all
wreck.
angles, it was just tremendously
Terrible.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't have a TV in our bedroom or anything like that. I was too weak to, like, sit up and read. So I would just sit there and I would think and I would pray and I would cry and my kids would come in and cuddle with me, and but my mind started little by little over that first month get direction of what I was really called to do. And this book just came, it wasn't even like I was thinking about it. It was literally like uh someone direct downloaded like a script into
Mm.
my head. So finally, once I had more strength, my husband would bring my laptop in and I'd be laying on my side, probably not very ergonomic, but just laying on my side, typing whatever came into my mind. So, your big next, the idea behind it was like I had read, I'm a business person. So, like, give me all the 10x books and the growth books and the this books. But everything that was missing for me was like, how do we determine the whole picture? Like, I don't want to just talk about 10xing my business because, again, what we've been talking about this whole episode, like, what's the cost of
Mm.
that?
Mm.
How do
What's
I
the purpose?
know? Right. What's the purpose and how does that affect other people in my life and the values I want to live by? Your big next is different because it's like divinely orchestrated. It's like what in this season are you called to do? And then how do you do that? How do you become the
Mm.
person that's capable of it? So it's a mix of that premise and a lot of it going from force to overflow. We call it overflow
Mm.
CEO, like so who you become. But then in my true nature, I couldn't help but making it a very tangible book. So it has a lot of frameworks, similar like we have the visionary matrices in there, but we have many things. We have another tool called the Visionary CEO schedule where we help you take your ideas and that calling and then translate it into where do I spend my time and put my focus? How do I get more into my sweet spot versus just doing all the things and being the operator of everything? And how do I do it all in a way that is in total alignment and congruence with exactly who I'm called to be in every corner of my life as a parent, as a spouse, so that someday, everyone thinks a legacy is something like we just leave and it's really rosy and wonderful. No, it can be really crappy. It can
Mm.
have a horrible impact. So
Yes,
we
that's true.
talk a lot about, like, living legacy.
Yeah.
Like, how do you live it now, and what does that look like? So that's the premise of the book of really shifting from busy work to your life's work and what that looks like, and how to use your business as the vehicle to do that profitably and build prosperity and purpose in your life.
Mm. So we started off speaking about this very successful mastermind you were doing, and your mentor sitting down and going, this is, you're not, this is maybe not. Are you having that sense that I don't want to work with these people? You still do masterminds,
I
obviously.
do, just not with jerks.
Just not with jerks. I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the prequel. You cannot be a jerk.
exactly.
Let's get
Are
straight.
you a
Let's get
jerk
straight
or
to the
are you
point
not
here.
a jerk?
You have to, yeah,
Yep,
exactly. You have to like my kids and not be jerks. Yeah.
yep.
So, but have how you approach them? Is it just the different people you're bringing in, or is the work you're doing in those masterminds very different to the work you would have done? Like, if
Yeah,
someone
it's
wants to
both.
join you, one of your masterminds now, what are the masterminds about, and who are they for?
Yeah, so it's called the Overflow CEO Mastermind, and the they have to be very established business owners. So this is not a tool for new stage or early stage or startup. And the cool thing is like my prerequisite is yeah, you can't be a jerk, but it's like you have to be even if we worked with a company last year that was doing about 28 million. But they were, like, some of the most humble, down to earth people. It's like, just be a down to earth, good person and want to be that, and I want to work with you. So we work with businesses of all different industries, like, literally across the board. We work with, digital online entrepreneurs, speakers, and authors. We had an HVAC company and a fencing company. We work with photographers and we work with real estate agents, like, you name it, we work with you because the great equalizer is leadership. If our focus is to take you from force to overflow, from busy entrepreneur to visionary, like from operator of your business to in your sweet spot, having your most profitable years yet, then we can do that across any industry because you are the one that we're
Yeah.
unlocking and serving. So it's been such a treasure, and it's a combination of virtual and in person because I think that in person element is so, so critical. We have people from all over the world. So over the year together, it starts in the new year, and over the year together, we are getting under the hood of your business. We are doing a lot of business strategy, but we're doing it by first understanding who
Yeah.
you are, where your bottlenecks are, helping you unlock those. And we encourage people to join with their spouse, even if their spouse isn't in the business, because you are on this is how you stay in integrity
Mm.
with raising a family well and running a business well, is that you're on a mission together, even if they have a very different role, right? Like, even if they don't know a thing about the numbers or anything in the business, or they're running their own business.
Mm.
And then the other piece is we encourage people to join with their right hand, because a big part of getting you into your sweet spot, into that overflow CEO seat versus the operator doing everything, maintaining everything, is having the right people on your team who understand the right processes and systems to elevate and grow. So we do a lot of teaching on that side of the coin too, of helping your team become what they need to be to support the vision and your big next and where you're going. And it's just such a gift. So yes, it's evolved a lot. We still do plenty of business strategy, but it's not without the piece that to me is so foundational, which is like breaking through your crap and doing the impossible and becoming who you're really called to be.
That's a very unusual mix of bringing your
Mhm.
spouse or partner and also
Yeah.
bringing your number one or your right hand man or woman or whatever. That's a very unusual mix. But I can understand entirely how it works with any different business, because at the end of the day, you don't need to know anything about their business. It's about who they are, who they're becoming, and help them become the leaders they can become. Liz, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you. So much in common, and you certainly seem to be living the life you're guiding others to live. So we will let you. So, firstly, thank you for coming in the pod, because I really enjoyed chatting to you. I know you're eager to cannonball into that swimming pool. So it's been well. Sorry, before we let you go, just let people know where they can find you.
Well, I have a gift I wanna share with your listeners
Okay.
because it is something that, again, has helped me tremendously. If they just DM me on Instagram at Liz Hartke, ELIZHARTKE, the word clarity, I'm gonna send them the exact prompts and questions that I ask myself on a weekly basis to get clarity as the leader I need to be, to answer that question, like, what is the right thing, or what are the right decisions I need to make, or what needs to go, what needs to stay, who am I becoming, and how do I get there? So I'm happy to share those. They can also, if they don't have Instagram, which I respect, I love when people don't have social media, they can go to luminaryleadershipco.com/clarity, and I'm happy to share those. And then they'll be privy to when things launch with the book and different things like that, because we'll be in contact. But uh, my podcast, come subscribe. I love this is where I that's where I like to share the most and go the deepest and share the stuff that I feel like can serve the very best for them.
And the podcast is called Your Big Next.
It is, yes.
Excellent. Well, we will put all these in the show notes so people can scroll down and sign up, and hopefully learn lots from you. Liz Hartke, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me, Paul. This was a joy.